Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rogue Wave podcast. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on youtube.com/Rogue Matter and facebook.com/Rogue Matter podcasts. We do it from a rogue perspective. I am your host, Mike Dolce, as always joined by my cohort in crime, Mr. Hassan Godwin. How you doing, sir?
You know what I never understand is if like two of us are doing this together, right?
Yes.
Then how are we rogue? Because like rogues don't really, they don't.
Anyone
they
who
don't
listens to our show knows
coordinate.
we break off from the herd in opposite directions.
So there are times we go rogue from each other.
Oh,
like, you're
that's
saying.
basically the entire makeup of the show.
Okay.
The
All
entire
right.
makeup of the show is we go rogue.
Okay.
We're
That
gonna-
makes some kind of sense.
Exactly. So we're bringing it back a little old school here. I'm back in the radio booth tonight because it's a very special holiday affair, and we'll figure out we'll figure out what we do next week. We will have a show next week, but I think I'll be in the radio booth for that as well too. And we got a lot to talk about. Basically, we were going to take the week between Christmas and New Year's off, but unfortunately, they were not going to let us do that because they were going to release The Matrix and the Hawkeye finale. And tonight's episode, they had to go and release the third largest movie of all time. So it's like, how could we not do a show?
Yeah. I know. Well, we could have not done the show, but you know.
Clearly, I'm talking about the new Guillermo del Toro vehicle.
Yes. It was so good, I forgot the name of it.
Night Watch or something. I want to see that movie, by the way.
I do, but I'm not. All due respect to him, New York's kind of crazy right now, so I've seen just about all I'm going to see in the theaters.
Yes,
for the year 2021.
No, agreed. I agree. I think it's funny that much maligned HBO Max dual thing.
The day and date releases they call them, right?
Came full circle for us when all was said and done. So
yeah, they're probably going to help us.
Well, we would not be having a show next week, or we would just be talking about the Hawkeye finale.
Again and again.
We will do it all next week because that's a lot of stuff to have to watch in one day. And we figured if we did Hawkeye today, people would be deciding between the Matrix and the Hawkeye show, and why make people choose?
I'm only going to act like I'm as busy as you are. I just kind of nod and agree to that, but I really could have. I could have watched. I could have watched all of Hawkeye today. Yeah. if I haven't been already up to date on it and whatever. So
yeah.
But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Yes, we are very busy, and there's not a lot of time for this stuff, and there's a lot of content. I will say, that we are being front loaded with a lot of or backloaded. I guess the year is backloaded with a lot of content. Like a lot of stuff is out in December. I don't understand it. I know
that's
it's
also a result of COVID too.
Yeah,
not even just the rescheduled stuff, but then things that were like interrupted and just they got to get it out.
Probably a quarterly, like an accounting quarterly kind of thing where everything's got to come in 2021 just to be counted as X.
Yes.
So that's why everyone's like, okay, do it the last week of December, and we'll call it a 2020. Yeah,
it is an info
Holy
dump.
Crap. But okay, I'm done.
Today's episode is all about Spider-Man No Way Home. Warning, if you haven't seen the movie, we're going to do our best to skirt around some stuff, but I just don't think we can even possibly not spoil this. So if you haven't seen it yet, shame on you. I mean 220 million, I think people have seen it, right? I'm going to go on a limb and say I think people have managed to go out and see this thing.
A couple of people, maybe 6 to 7 people have seen it over and over and over and over again.
Yeah,
that's the percentage of it that I've been calculating by myself on this napkin.
Yeah, it was a lot. So I mean, let's start there right now with the box office, which I thought was actually an interesting point to note, is that people were discussing. There's actually
people are disgusting.
Well, not just that.
Is that not what you said? I'm sorry.
No, are discussing in the fact that as of 3 days, as of the 20th, It soared to 253 million in the US, 587 million globally. And while they are all saying this is really great news, because look, it is really great news, right?
I'd say so.
It's great for box office, it's great for struggling movie theaters. It'll keep them in business, with whatever variant comes through or comes out or comes, whatever mandates happen, at least there was something that got people out there. But then there was a lot of people saying, well, why is, it actually showed the gap between event movies like Spider-Man and all the rest. Like we just mentioned the Guillermo del Toro movie, which did a paltry like 4 million when it first opened. Yeah. It's funny because we talk about like the wealth gap in society sometimes, but the content gap when it comes to movie theaters is just as wide in terms of the kinds of movies that people are making and what we're going to expect to find, going forward.
I don't know. I think this sounds stupid. I think it's guaranteed. Like you're guaranteed to have a time, maybe not a good time, right? Or not definitely a bad time, but you're guaranteed to have some kind of big experience, right? It's going to be big. That's something. And so you're going to save your. And I look. The media plays it down, people play it down or whatever, but COVID's a big deal for a lot of people. Like people are like, look, I don't want to get sick. Like the minute people started hearing about another mutation, people already started to clam up, like, in various areas without being told, without mandates or anything like that. So I think when you you're already weighing it, there's already a lot of introverted people out there. There's already a lot of, antisocial kind of behavior that happens, and people weigh their options. Like, do I want to go to the movies? Do I want the hassle of going to the movies and hassle of sitting around with other people, even if there's no disease, and hearing people talk while I'm trying to watch, or playing with their phone while I'm trying to watch a movie or whatever. The movie experience is a great experience, but it's being diminished on a regular basis.
Oh yeah,
and there's a lot. I don't know how it is in your area, but there's a lot less maintenance there. There used to be like kind of a crowd control aspect to it, where people like were making noise, and then ushers would be like, "Oh, you guys, you got to shut it down." Yeah,
no, we don't. I don't think people, none of that. People are not working right now. People, so finding ushers is actually more.
There are no ushers. Like they don't. Yeah. There's no control. So basically, you are.
I did have a guy tell me, "Have a good day," though, when I left the theater.
Well, yeah, but I mean, how hard is that?
I'm saying he was there.
There are people there.
Yeah,
but they're completely disconnected from the process. They're there. They're like, okay, your theater's down there, sir. And your theater's over there, ma'am. And the concession's right there, sir. Yeah. Don't talk to me. And so you're on your own when you're if you're having a bad experience because of other patrons. Yeah. You're basically on your own. So that's another thing that kind of cuts into the experience or not. So now you add on respiratory disease, and people are like, you know what? I'm all for going out to go see a movie, but I'm going to pick my movie. I'm picking my battles. Yeah. And I'm not going to go see a niche movie even though logically it would be better to see the Del Toro movie because there'd be less people in the theater.
Well, that's a point. I think also too, and I agree with you. I think there's definitely that area. I think there's also the fact that, people's whole
I agree with you. That's
now.
all. I'm not even listening anymore.
I know. Well, you can do your victory parade, I guess. Good. If you're going to do a victory parade, do it now because we're going to talk about Spider-Man soon. I think the at-home experience is just, not only is it better in some ways because you can get a 70-inch TV for like $200, right? Like an LED 200, you can get the Dolby sound. You can have all this stuff. Ben Affleck, actually, they recently did an interview with him on a red carpet, and he literally talked about how, look, things are just adapted. The theater experience for a quiet movie just doesn't make sense. People want to pause, like me, go to the bathroom. They want to, hey, my kid it just interrupted me. I gotta hit pause, or you know what? I'm kind of tired tonight. I'll finish it tomorrow. Like it's the way people are digesting movies. Streaming services have gotten so sophisticated also in the sense that, when you used to watch TV was not great. Like I think back to Buffy, look at the special effects on Buffy. It was not great. Now you can pour into TV the kind of budgets. I mean, look at Falcon and Winter Soldier, the opening sequence of that. I still think, out of everything in that whole series, and as much as I might malign that series, that opening sequence was amazing. The special effects are amazing. Look at Hawkeye. I mean, look at the special effects, there's what you can do on quote unquote TV now has now conditioned us to just want to sit at home and watch some of this stuff because, there's nothing, that needs to, I don't need to go to a theater to watch a quiet movie. Now, we were kind of talking off air, and again, we'll talk Matrix next week. Matrix, I actually would have enjoyed in a theater. I would, if there was no option, I'd have no problem going to a theater and watching it. And quite frankly, I probably would have enjoyed all the fight scenes more. And as a result, I actually enjoyed all the quiet scenes more because I'm at home. It's quiet. It's easier. It's a better. It's from. I'm able to take those in a little bit better than say like the fight scenes because I don't have surround sound Dolby. I have a speaker that I'm trying not to wake my daughter up who's sleeping. You know what I mean? Like there's different factors that go into it. So again, yes, if you make it, in a way, they will come. And boy, did they come for Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, I think we've avoided talking spoilers as much as humanly possible. At this point, please just put us on mute. Keep watching us, though. We want to rack up those views. Hit the like and subscribe button, whatever you're watching us, because we always like that as well, too. But we are now about to embark on a spoiler-centric Spider-Man No Way Home Rogue review. What's your immediate Rogue reaction, or do you want my Rogue reaction first? I'm gonna toss it.
I'll listen to you.
Okay.
What's your reaction?
So I liked it. Obviously, I don't think there's anything not to like. I think Tom Holland. What's that?
That's a dangling. There's a dangling.
It's not butt face yet.
Close.
I have a butt face.
All right, but the inflection was dangling. But okay, all right.
I don't think there's anything about Tom Holland as Spider-Man you can dislike. Again, spoilers, but having now seen all three Spider-Men on screen, I think he is definitively the better, and I don't say best, but like the better out of all three. I think he is, without a doubt, just, to me, he embodies the visuals of Spider-Man, I think, the best out of all three. I think his performance in this one, they actually gave him something to work with, and they gave it to him in a way that, as a longtime Spider-Man fan, you've always wanted him to take on Green Goblin. You always wanted him to take on Dr. Octopus. I appreciated the fact they never went back and told the same Spider-Man story all over again for the third time, just because we've seen so many iterations of him. I hope the Batman, which is coming out next year, follows suit and kind of follows in line with what
it opens a portal and Jack Nicholson and
no, I don't mean that. I don't mean like that. I just mean like
Danny DeVito pop out of a portal.
Right. Well, what they did with the Marvel universe, or the MCU Spider-Man, was say we're not going to retread the villains you've seen before. We're not going to have him battle Green Goblin all over again, and reinvent and recast. And in what they ended up doing here was kind of accomplishing a twofold experience, in which case you get to see a Spider-Man Green Goblin battle. You don't get to see it in the way you think you're going to see it, so that's great. Anytime you can take something that fans want and people are expecting and do it in a way that's different and unexpected. This is, whether or not you think it's unexpected, it's definitely different to do it this way, to actually bring the original Willem Dafoe Green Goblin back and have a definitive Spider-Man Green Goblin, battle in the MCU. I mean, look, there's no other way to say it, right? It's brilliant. It's a brilliant thing, but it's doubly brilliant because not only what we get on screen, but now it makes the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans, and even look, Andrew Garfield's much maligned Spider-Mans, and with good reason much maligned Amazing Spider-Man movies, relevant to the MCU now. I actually thought as I left the theater, I'm like, boy, now my son's really going to have to watch Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man now. He was going to anyway. I was going to probably show it to him anyway, but it probably would not have been before seeing any of the MCU Spider-Mans. I would have probably just been like, oh, and by the way, there was a Spider-Man movie in 2002 that I really liked. If you wanted to see it, you can. And it has a different, and I'd have to explain why there's a different Spider-Man in it and things like that. But now I don't have to. Now it kind of brings everything full circle. Alfred Molina was amazing as usual. Jamie Foxx got a visual makeover that I appreciated. The Electro costume, being much closer to, and Green Goblin's costume being much closer to what the original, comic book, costumes were. I thought it was great. I really did. And finally, I'll sit there and tell you, it explained why we never got an Uncle Ben in this universe. Why they never kept, boy, you'd think he'd at least mention Uncle Ben. Like, they don't have to relive it, but boy, no mention of it, because there was no Uncle Ben in this. And I've always contended for people that, complain about the MCU and maybe recasting people, recasting races of people, genders of people, changing origins or powers or whatever. Anyone that might complain about the MCU doing that, I always viewed this as an ultimate universe. And what it did now is, I think it re-solidified that, look, if you want classic Spider-Man, just go watch the Sam Raimi films. You've got them. And they're now part of the films that are current and today. So to me, that was all the great of Spider-Man No Way Home.
Okay, so you liked it. So you thought it was a good. Is it your favorite?
No,
Spider-Man movie.
No, and I will sit there and tell you, it's not one of it. What's odd about it? It's the same kind of argument we kind of had a few weeks ago, and I forget which movie we were talking to. Oh, the Ghostbusters movie. Is it does really rely now. I mean, it really relies on you having had prior knowledge of these other movies. Which, look, that's the MCU stock and trade, right? At this point, you're not going into the third Spider-Man movie.
Sort of. It sort of does.
Yeah.
But I think if you haven't seen those other 2 movies, those other 5 movies, excuse me, I don't know if you would be lost watching this one.
Right.
Because it does kind of explain itself, right? It does, first of all, it explains, okay, these guys are from another universe.
Right.
And it doesn't really not tell you anything that you would have to have seen the other movies for. Just says it does tell you that Spider-Man killed all those guys, which shows you that Spider-Man's pretty murderous, right? And
yeah. Or no, he's bad luck is what he is. I mean, if you think about it, right?
But yeah, the only one he didn't kill was Doc Ock. Spoilers. Doc Ock killed himself.
But Lizard didn't die either, I don't think.
Yeah.
Lizard and Sandman didn't die. So
no.
They made it
so
through.
Yeah, so that was incorrect when they said all these guys died. There's only 2 of them.
Well, Doctor Strange didn't, so I had a friend of mine, actually friend of the show, James Massia, was like, hey, and by the way, they didn't all die fighting Spider-Man. And I go, I don't think, if you actually replay the scene in your head, or if you've actually gone and rewatched it, they're going through all like the ones who are actually talking are all the ones that died, and so Doctor Strange is just addressing those 3 that died.
Yeah, they kind of short shrifted Sandman and what. I mean, they didn't really give them.
They didn't even give him a credit. Thomas Hayden Church was like a big time actor in the 2000s.
Yeah, and
I noticed that. I was like, oh, I can't remember what actor's name it is. Well, it'll be in the credits, and it was not in.
And then the Jamie Foxx thing was kind of a redo, right? Because he didn't want to be in that blue makeup, I guess, and he just wanted to look like, I don't know.
I want him to look like Electro too, right? He looks like the blue Electro is not what Electro looks like. Although I guess he looks like the ultimate version of Electro.
But Jamie Foxx didn't look like Electro either. He didn't have the mask on. He doesn't have.
No, he did. You didn't see it when he lit up?
It was instantaneous.
He
didn't have the mask on, and he didn't have the costume. He didn't,
No, I thought they homaged the original.
That's not what you're asking me. What I thought.
Okay.
So
I'm just disagreeing with you.
Yeah, I know, but I let you talk. So
okay.
I didn't agree or disagree with anything you said, even though I disagreed with all of it. You jerk.
I have one other point about it, but I don't want to hear what you say.
No, make your point. What's your point?
This was one of the best MCU
I don't agree.
movies.
I'm kidding.
I'm not saying it's my favorite Spider-Man movie. And I'm not saying it might not even be. I don't know where it ranks in my MCU Spider-Man movies. I actually think like Infinity War is my favorite Spider-Man movie out of the MCU. I'm just saying out of the MCU, not in Spider-Man, but I'm saying, out of all the Spider-Man movie. But it's one of the best MCU movies. It's one of the best movies I've seen lately, and for this one reason.
It's one of the better standalone movies, definitely.
It is such a simple plot. Like, it does not get hung up. Like, if you look at the layer of it, right? The layer of it is Spider-Man has this bad thing happen to him. He tries to fix it, causes bad stuff to happen, tries to fix it, then realizes in trying to fix it, bad stuff's going to happen, tries to fix that. In the end, has to do what's right, wins the day. And there's not a part of me that remember watching Eternals and you're like, oh man, there's a lot of characters in this movie, and oh man, I don't know why that person.
I don't remember that because that wasn't my experience. But you're saying that's what you remember,
yes,
right?
Yes. Okay. But you remember my reaction to watching Eternals, where I'm like,
that's a different
why is
question.
That character in here? Why is boy, I didn't really feel that character's motivations made sense. Boy, I don't know why that guy just turned on a dime. I don't know why they even bothered with that alien in there that creature, because that creature didn't make any sense. And boy, why did they do this? Like, there was no part of this movie that made me stop and question anything. It was just a very, and simple is not, dumbed down, and simple is not bad. Simple is great. Simple is like, I understand these characters, what they're doing, what the goals are, what the motivations are, what they have to overcome, and what are the troubles in doing so.
Okay. All right.
So that was my one point I forgot to add.
All right. Okay. I mean, look, I thought it was really well done. I thought it was extremely, it was very tastefully done, unlike another movie we just recently watched that we were going to talk about next week. And
ooh, that's good foreshadowing. I like that.
Yeah, and but I mean, I didn't even feel that it was more of a nostalgia grab. I thought it was more a clever way of tackling these very iconic Spider-Man villains without having to reinvent the Spider-Man villains.
Yeah.
And I think that, I could see that sitting in a board meeting going like, we have to do, because basically also the movie was a course correction for a lot of the criticisms of the MCU Spider-Man, where it was just Iron Man. He was just a new Iron Man. Like, he got all his tech from Tony Stark, and he's even got an iron suit, and he could fly, and he could do a number of things and he was basically on the payroll of Tony Stark, and then Tony Stark fired him in the first movie, and then he kind of was on his own again, but he got back in good with Tony Stark. And then his second movie was kind of getting over the death of Tony Stark, and kind of branching out on his own. But this movie was really, he's just cut loose, and he's on his own.
Yep.
And he's the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, right? Yeah. Without the Iron Spider suit, without with all the satellite uplinked gear and GPS finders and all this stuff that's in his snazzy suit, his snazzy cloth suit. So that was pretty good. I thought that was as clever a reset as, say, the Days of Future Past.
I agree.
Or the Days of Future Present, or whatever the
Days of Future Past
was. Days of Future Past, and which of course they ruined with the very next movie, but it doesn't matter. That was a good reset. The Days of Future Past is my favorite X-Men movie, if I have one. Because it's like, wow, they very, very overtly, but yet very cleverly reset the all the mistakes, quote unquote mistakes, that the previous movies thought that they had made. And so the same with Spider-Man, where it wasn't fixing mistakes, but it was more course correcting the criticisms that he was receiving. And maybe it's organic, maybe they meant to do that all along.
Yeah.
But maybe it was in reaction to fan a backlash about some of that stuff. But either way, that complaint is gone. I don't know how I feel about the ending.
I have questions about the ending.
Yeah, I mean, like, first of all, like, the sentimentality in myself, I never like a movie where it ends with a funeral, basically. Sometimes it has to happen. Endgame had to happen that way. That was one of the biggest critiques I had of the second Amazing Spider-Man, is it ended with Gwen Stacy dead, and then he did this somber music, and they just, and Spider-Man, like, just his entire body language at the end, fighting a mech suit rhinoceros, was like, oh yeah, I lost my girlfriend, but I'm still here, kid. It's great to be Spider-Man. It was like, wow, this is death. This whole ending is death. So, it doesn't really end on the down note, but the fact that he inadvertently lost everything, is kind of like, wow, that's pretty heavy. Just that's just really heavy. That's a heavy thing. Let me ask you a question.
Let me ask you a question. What do you think happened between when the spell is cast that people forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, or sorry, they forget that Peter Parker is Peter Parker at all, like that he exists, and the, I guess, 6 months later kind of deal when he, finally tracks down Zendaya and he's got all his clothes and he's got like I'm sitting there going, first of all, if the spell is happening, like, did he get teleported away? Because if not, the three of them are just standing there and they're just like, who are you? I'm Peter Parker. Like it was one of those weird like moments in my head where I'm like it doesn't really compute. Like there had to be some sort of like,
yeah, it's one of those like esoteric things you're not really supposed to think too deeply about.
I know,
like it's just a reset switch. It's just a Deus Ex Machina reset switch. It just, I don't know. But anyway,
does Peter Parker still have a social security number? Because he's obviously, no one remembers him, but does that mean he wasn't born? Because then how does he get all his money? And how did he get like all his stuff?
Well, how could he afford that cup of coffee? That's dumb. Everything that's him that still exists. It just, the bank teller wouldn't remember him if he saw him last week.
I guess so, yeah.
All your stuff, he didn't erase him from existence. He just erased him from everybody's memory. So he has to reforge relationships with other people. That's all.
Okay.
The thing is, like, he, like, first of all, the reaction to like, I'm not letting you in this school because you're friends with Spider-Man, that's a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I know it works in the bill, in the story, in the narrative, but that's hey, fuck you. If I have the grades to get into your school, and you very foolishly, no university would ever tell them why we're not accepting you.
I agree with that.
That's ridiculous. Like, we aren't accepting you because of your association with Donald Trump. That's discrimination. You can't do that.
Who it turns out is Spider-Man. Who knew?
Yes,
this whole time.
Donald Trump is Spider-Man.
This whole time.
So, like, that's a kind of a, like, like, they could have sat there and they could have felt that those letters implied that they weren't getting into school because of Spider-Man. But the fact that the letter actually said that is like, well, now we sue them and we make millions of dollars, right? So that, and especially if Peter Parker is well known, if he's a celebrity now.
Yes.
So you can be like, hey, my friends, these schools won't let my friends in because of me, because of knowing me, even though I helped save the world.
Right.
Give me a break. That plot it would have been better if it was all in their heads, if that was their head canon. If Peter was like, they're not getting into school because of me, and that means I got to fix things. But the fact that they actually sent the letter is like, well, now you got that school by the balls. Like, you don't worry about it. You're getting in. But anyway. Maybe
it was the Christmas spirit in me, but I agree with what you're saying, but at the time it didn't bother me.
It doesn't bother me. That's the weird thing about this movie. There's a lot of issues I have with it, but none of them bother me.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of narrative issues. Like, first of all, the other thing is, and this is the paranoid me, maybe you do not agree because we grew up in different ways, but there's no effing way. I don't care how sentimental or sad-faced he is. I do not trust Willem Dafoe for nothing. For nothing. If Willem Dafoe gave me a cup of coffee and a bowl of soup because I was starving, I'd be like, no, thank you, Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, but you know what? Look, it makes sense because it's something that we knew was going to happen. And in a way, I what I would sit there and tell you, it's not just because of the way Willem Dafoe looks, and I don't disagree with that, right? he's very menacing, regardless. Like just in general, like just seeing him on the red carpet, he's very menacing guy.
Yeah, it's like fucking Willem Dafoe, stay away from him.
But the reaction that he had gotten when Doc Ock came would have made me a little, wary of helping him. That being said, his spider sense didn't go off, so it's something that it didn't go off until
his spider sense warns him about danger. It doesn't necessarily warn him about like jerks, like people.
Yeah, but I'm saying if he was a danger at that point, he wasn't. And Peter Parker would have known.
It's just kind of a thing. It's not like I said, it's not a problem.
Yeah,
I don't really have a problem with
deal breaker.
But and I don't have a problem with it's kind of the same vein that made Tarkin the villain of Rogue One. It was like, wow, I like getting an old villain back. I like that we don't have to reestablish and tell an entire origin story of how the guy became a villain, X blah blah blah. I like that those are the things that really work with the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies.
Yes,
and we get to have them again. Like Doc Ock was everybody. It was a revelation to people. That's why it's the second Spider-Man movie is a lot of people's favorite superhero movie of all time.
Oh yeah, so, mine included. I think.
Yeah, me too. My definitely me. I love that movie. So to get him back, and then to somewhat fix him, is and to have him be kind of a good guy.
Yeah,
that's. I think the film is a great piece of, is a great work of art. It's a great.
You call it an achievement?
I don't know. Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with calling it an achievement. I think the problem with the movie, and here's the soapbox. I heard so much of the stuff that's already in this that had heard so many action sequences for the movie before I saw the damned movie. So a lot of the things they said, well, so-and-so will save so-and-so because of this and because of that. And I had heard all of it because of the speculation. The other thing is, because of the way movies are today, it was so hard to just take this as an experience without analyzing the hell out of it. Like, was that done well? Or was that, is that going to go over too well? Like, it's. I think the tragic thing about this movie, for me, I won't speak for you. The tragic thing about the movie is just the kind of loss of innocence in the audience. Like, like this, it's overwrought with gimmickry because they know that a lot of us are past it. A lot of us are past just average spectacle, and that we all need some kind of, some enormous meta, response in order to get our stimuli going.
What was nice about this, though, is it wasn't over the top meta. It wasn't
depending on your point of view, though.
I'm giving you my point of view. I don't think it was over the top meta. And the funny part is what you mentioned about, kind of already knowing. I mean, we talked for weeks about the rumors about Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire being in the movie again. And was it going to happen? Was it not going to happen? It has to happen, or else the whole movie could be a failure if it doesn't now, just because everyone's anticipating it. It actually didn't ruin it for me. It was still in the context of the movie. Like the introduction of what's that?
I'm sure it doesn't ruin it, but imagine if you didn't know it. Imagine if that just happened and you had no clue that was going to happen. Right?
Agreed. It would have been about. Would it be better or just different though for me? And I would sit there and tell you that's my point. Because of when they appeared and how they appeared, which I thought was very clever, with Ned Leeds. Who, man, we got to get into him in a second too. Wielding the portal and bringing Spider-Man through, and it's like, oh, cool, this is where they're coming in. And look, I held out hope.
See how the reaction is. It's not, oh my God, that's
right,
Andrew Garfield. It's no, that was well done.
That's how they brought him in. That's how they brought him in, right?
Yeah,
but I held out hope. I actually sat there thinking maybe they're not in the movie. Because I never got official confirmation. I assumed, but there's still part of me that sat there saying maybe they're not in the movie.
I know that's not your position on it. I'm saying that my position on it is like the loss. I think it's a loss. I think not being able to just experience something without instead of like, oh my God, Andrew Garfield is in it. I was more like, they brought him in really well.
Well, I got to tell you, Andrew Garfield did an amazing job lying, just like blatantly.
No, he
lying.
didn't, because nobody believed him.
No, but I mean, okay, sorry,
he didn't lie
very well, but he did an amazing job.
No, he did an amazing job keeping the lie up.
Yes,
but he did. If he had done an amazing job lying, we would have believed him. That's an amazing lie, you know.
Okay, true. He wasn't very good at lying. I'm just amazed that he was able to blatantly lie as forthright as he was.
He was able to blatantly lie because they knew
he basically said, "I am not in this movie."
You know why? Because there was $1 billion lawsuit in it. If he didn't lie, you could lie. If you.
Well, Alfred Molina gave up. He spilled the beans,
and he might have lost some points on that.
Maybe
he might have lost percentage points on it. Who knows what happened to him after the fact?
They were going to fix his hair too, but then after he spilled the beans, they went back and CGI'd it back.
Oh my god!
Back to
anyway.
No, I would sit there and tell you the reveal.
No, don't sit there and tell me.
And here's the other reveal. Again, it was like, okay, Andrew Garfield's back. Oh, they did. Oh, he is here. Is Tobey Maguire going to come back? And so again, I think the reveal was great. If the reveal was not handled well, if it was one of I like the fact that it was in a quiet way. It wasn't Spider-Man meeting them at first. Worked for me versus maybe just out of the blue them appearing. I think would have been, like in a fight scene or something like that. I think it would have been.
No, that's fine.
As well.
The problem, the kind of issue with it is we had just done that in Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah,
almost the same way. You know. And okay, we're going to embrace multiple universes because that's like the final frontier of fantasy now. It's the final frontier of fiction narrative. Unfortunately, like we can have our cake and eat it too. We can, people are starting to talk about like Game of Thrones, metaverse where Ned Stark didn't die.
Right.
Well, what's the alternate? In the alternate universe of Game of Thrones, Cersei is a good guy, and so it's. I mean, yeah, it's just the way things are going. There's no stopping it. It's going to get old very quickly. Pertaining to how it was done, I believe it was done really well. I enjoyed the film. I had no problems with it. There are parts about it I didn't like, but I didn't think they were problematic, overall. There's some personal reasons that some things I didn't like that have really no bearing in a review.
Yeah.
And look, we're gonna get more. And I do think Tom Holland is great. I'm not getting into the debate is he the best Spider-Man? I think they just proved to us that there's no such thing as the best Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That all the Spider-Men, all of them count.
Yeah.
Which is I did like that the MCU, very vaguely canonized the other two iterations of Spider-Man, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
People are talking about we want the third Amazing Spider-Man movie to finish off that story.
And that's the internet. Happening. I don't buy it. Look, the internet. Have we learned nothing from the past 5 years?
That's what I'm saying. The internet
is that there is no
thing.
And they want the Sam Raimi fourth Spider-Man that he was going to make too.
Yeah.
No.
You noticed that Venom didn't come through, though, right? Conveniently, Venom wasn't, and Venom was certainly killed by Tobey Maguire. He killed Venom.
Right. Okay, that Venom. So very good segue, by the way, to the mid-credit scene. What are the rules of this multiverse spell? Like, how is it that there is a piece of a Venom costume? And I get it. The idea is now we can introduce the Venom symbiote in the MCU, and that could be part of the Spider-Man thing. Oh, how does any piece of him remain if once he closes it up, everyone disappears?
Venom's an alien, so I guess that's the only way you could explain it. So you could just default to that. Yeah, he's an alien. They could do different things. Done. Next question.
The other thing that's very fascinating to me, and this relates to both the next trilogy of Spider-Man movies and to the Morbius movie, which is coming out next month, which, by the way, Sony really blew it by not by pushing Morbius's date back to January. Now they had an actual window where we were relatively unencumbered by COVID enough to go to the theaters, and they ended up moving it to now a much more a much gianter question mark as to whether or not they're going to move it again. They chose poorly. The fact that the J. Jonah Jameson in the MCU is the exact same J. Jonah Jameson in, not the exact same, but again, essentially, he doesn't, like, there is a distinctive difference between the Peter Parker in Sam Raimi, the way he looks, and the Peter Parker in Amazing Spider-Man, and the Peter Parker in the MCU, because they're all played by different actors. The fact that J. Jonah Jameson is the same.
InfoWars, J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah. No, which I love. I mean, look, that's an Ultimate Universe thing where they take a character or they take a setting in the Ultimate Universe.
He just owned that role. There was no replacing him. There was no replacing him.
No, I get it. I mean, he's great, and I'm glad he's there. But it's just interesting to me now. Now I have a question mark because in the what was it, in the first Venom movie, or is it the upcoming Morbius movie where you actually? No, it's the upcoming Morbius movie where you have the Vulture. Michael Keaton is in the trailers for Morbius. Mm-hmm. Is that now the MCU Michael Keaton, or is that the Sony Michael Keaton, or
they're all Sony Michael Keaton. They were all Sony Michael Keaton.
Well, no, but in terms of what universe does he occupy now?
Well, you'll find out.
So, and my last thought on this.
What's wrong with waiting to find out, though? Like, we'll find out.
No, I know, but now it's one of those things that has got me thinking, and that's what happens when I start thinking.
That's a problem. Don't think.
I got to start thinking. I'm like, ooh. What does that mean now? Because you can have J. Jonah Jameson look exactly the same in all universes. Although I guess technically, if they were to bring the Tobey Maguire J. Jonah Jameson, he might not look as old. They might bring him back as he looked in the original, with the flat top, and not the bald head. So who knows? Maybe MCU version is bald headed J. Jonah Jameson. Tobey Maguire, flat top J. Jonah Jameson. There you go. I just solved it. I just solved it in my own head.
It's a lot of work you did there.
Final thought on this, and then we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to coin a new segment in between breaks. I have an idea for one, so we're gonna come up with one in between break. How bad must DC just feel? Constantly watching the Marvel Universe, just. It's like that old South Park episode where Cartman was just yelling the entire episode that The Simpsons did it first, and everything they did wouldn't compare to what The Simpsons did because The Simpsons just did it first, and generally not necessarily did it better, but the joke was that The Simpsons just did it first, and you have this whole Flash multiverse thing happening next year that's going to bring back all the Batmen, and it's gonna unify all the different universes in the DC universe, and now but Marvel,
it's a game.
Marvel did it first.
They're not as good at the game as Marvel is.
They're just not.
There's nothing to be said about that. I mean, they had to drop on him if they had just gotten their act together. And look, it's counterintuitive to say because they're running a multi-billion-dollar business, but sometimes you got to let the art speak. On its own. If you keep trying to manipulate things, you keep throwing money at it, and keep trying to manipulate an outcome with your art, you're not privy to a phenomenon. Like, nobody planned the MCU. I mean, the MCU was a planned thing, but nobody planned for it to be the predominant movie franchise of this decade, right? You can't plan that.
Yep.
They were well thought out. They were well positioned. The product was well planned, and therefore, when the thing exploded, they were in a good position to hold on to it, as opposed to jumping the gun, making blatant mistakes, and ruining the whole thing. Right?
Yeah.
So now it's a matter of business. Their popularity, their current, because nothing lasts forever, but their current infallibility is factored into their business model.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, look, you got to take risks in the beginning. That whole thing was a risk in the beginning. Kevin Feige could have been the biggest joke in comic book movie history.
I read articles that people were, for lack of a better term, laughing behind his back at the thought of what he was trying to do.
You really cannot have a phenomenon without a phenomenal, kind of a phenomenally bombastic idea behind it. And you can't plan a phenomenon, and that's what DC. That's what Warner Brothers was trying to do. They were trying to copy the Marvel model, which is fine, because no model is copywritten. If you see something that works, you'll do it, right? If you're driving and then a tree falls and the guy finds a way around it, you're gonna follow that guy. You're not gonna be, I gotta come up with my own original way to get around this tree. You're gonna, I mean, that's natural.
Yep.
You're gonna follow success. There's nothing wrong with them trying to copy a working formula, but then they tried to manufacture the outcomes. They were not happy with their outcomes.
Yep.
You can't do that. You got to stick with the plan or change the plan, but you can't be like, we're going to change the plan. Oh no, that plan works again. We're going to stick with the plan. No, that plan's where that we can only hope that the Flash does what Days of Future Past did and tries to correct some things so that they have a clearer path forward. That's all we can hope for.
What do you guys think? Where does Spider-Man No Way Home rank in your all-time Spider-Man movies? We'll give you our take when we come back. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast. Just a reminder, go to roguematter.com. Check out all the cool comics we have up there. We have Making Markham. We have McBride and Groom. We have prose books as well, some short stories. Key to the City. I wrote one of them. They're up there as well, too. All the content is free. Go to roguematter.com. All right. We were talking earlier about Spider-Man No Way Home. And now we want to do a Rogue Ranks. I just came up with that idea. Actually, we've probably done it before. Hassan, Rogue rank your Spider-Man movies, least favorite to most favorite.
The first Amazing Spider-Man.
That's your favorite. Dungeon. That's in the Rogue dungeon.
Yeah. The second Amazing Spider-Man. No. First Amazing Spider-Man is the lowest. The third Sam Raimi Spider-Man.
Okay.
Second lowest. I would say the second Amazing Spider-Man, second Garfield Spider-Man. After that, that's 3, right?
Yeah.
Then probably the first Raimi Spider-Man.
Okay. Bold move, Cotton.
Well, Then the first, the Far From Home?
Yeah.
Or Homecoming.
No, yeah, Homecoming, right.
Homecoming is the first Tom Holland Spider-Man. Then Far From Home. And then this one. So that's down to...
it's down to just one Spider-Man movie left.
No, there's 2. I would say then Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're okay,
number 2.
Yeah. Okay,
and then Spider-Man 2 is my number 1.
That's another bold move. I wasn't even thinking about Into the Spider-Verse because that was an exclusively Sony one, but I'll allow it. I'll allow it for sure.
All of the 5 of them are exclusively Sony.
My Rogue. Well, you're right. Yeah, I guess I can't. I really can't knock. I guess it's my bias toward animation coming through.
No comment.
My Rogue rank in the dungeon is Amazing Spider-Man 2. I remember leaving that theater being like, this was just really god awful, like really god awful. Then followed by the third Spider-Man movie that Sam Raimi did, which was also god awful. Funny story about that is I went with one of my best friends. And then one of my best friends, his younger brother, who's also a good friend of mine, but he's autistic. And one of the things when he was still living near me we would take him to movies and things like that. And, so he had just the way his autism worked, from a level of anyway, the way he would experience things, he would get very excited about things, right? And so he remember leaving the theater after the third Spider-Man movie, the third Raimi Spider movie. He's like, "That was the best movie I've ever seen." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know, man. I was kind of like, had this, and I don't know, that was a little bit, And by the end, he's like, "You're right. It was the worst movie I've ever seen."
Look what you did.
I felt so bad. I was like, "Well, no, it's okay. I felt terrible. I felt it was like what you did to
baby's mouth.
It's like what you did to Superfan Jack, who was in our studio when we did the last that whole thing.
I didn't mean to do that though.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, it was that one, and then I would go Amazing Spider-Man 1. Then I would go Spider-Man 1. I actually kind of agree with you. The original Sam Raimi Spider-Man, I had a lot of issues. The first Sam Raimi Spider-Man, though, too, and this is why I know you knocked the X-Men movies, the Bryan Singer X-Men movies, at least the early ones. The later ones you can knock. The Apocalypse one was god-awful. But, what that Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie accomplished, I hate ranking it so low because just the fact that we got a Spider-Man movie on screen was such an accomplishment, and to see him actually web slinging, because that's the first time anybody's ever done it. I thought was very impressive. So so part of me hates ranking him that low, but I have to. Then I will go with the Spider-Man.
First time we've ever seen it done, but
on the big screen it was.
On the big screen.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And done live, not the first live action.
No, and done conceivably well. let's say executed properly.
It's matter of perspective, right? When you're a kid, Spider-Man on television, is pretty amazing.
All right, I'll take your word for that one. I don't remember that one.
You're gonna have to. You weren't alive when.
Okay. It's very true. Very true. Then I said Spider-Man: Homecoming. Which is still a very good film. Then Into the Spider-Verse for me. Then I would say Far From Home. Then I would say this movie. Nope, actually I'm going to flip-flop them. I'm going to go this movie, then Far From Home, then Spider-Man 2 still ranks supreme. The reason Spider-Man 2 for me ranks as the best is not only
Into the Spider-Verse doesn't even rank, right?
No, I put Spider-Verse after. Oh, sorry, Spider-Verse was supposed to be after Homecoming.
Okay.
I go into the Spider-Verse after Homecoming, then this movie, No Way Home, then Far From Home, and then Spider-Man 2. Throw in Infinity War. Infinity War is still, I think, my favorite Spider-Man in a movie out of everything, because I just thought it was really cool to see him as an Avenger and work, but that's not what the ranks are for. The reason Spider-Man 2 to me is still the best is what a complete movie that was.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
It wasn't just a great Spider-Man movie. It didn't have just one of the greatest Spider-Man sequences when he's on the, trying to stop the subway from crashing
on the elevated train that doesn't exist in New York City.
Exactly right. Not only was that awesome, but it had an amazing villain. It had an amazing hero. It had great, everything about it. There's not really anything about that film in general that, is not just one of the best things we've ever seen.
No, yeah, that is a really well done film. I think it wrapped up beautifully. Also when you realize that they're not going to drag this, nobody knows I'm Spider-Man thing out for 3 whole movies. Mary Jane got to the bottom of that mystery right away. Just like the Tom Holland in the second movie. His Michelle James figured it out pretty quickly. So it's a good movie. The second movie is really a very good movie. It's just one of my favorites.
Yeah.
It's my second favorite superhero movie of all time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
the reason I put Homecoming, Far From Home above No Way Home. No Way Home is great. But the reason I think that what Far From Home was able to do was create an actual villain in Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio that was formidable, much like what they did with Spider-Man 2 with Doc Ock. Whereas this movie was great, but it relied on the fact that, hey, look, we knew who these characters were, and we got to see Spider-Man's iconic villains in a Spider-Man movie, kind of like what you said. But I give it just like I give what Far From Home did just a little more, like a half a point credit more, just for the fact that they took a character we have not seen on screen and made him as formidable as what we had seen previous. All right, that's our show for tonight. We will be doing a special holiday version next week as well too, and then huge changes coming. Huge changes. We'll talk to you more about it next week. This is the Rogue Wave Podcast. We will see you guys next week.
Rogue Wave.
Hi guys, Mike Dolce here from the Rogue Wave Podcast. If you like this video, please feel free to like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It really helps us out. Leave a comment, let us know what you'd like to see in future episodes, and tune in every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, for a brand new episode of the Rogue Wave Podcast.